G'day George, thanks for the comment mate. So what are your thoughts on using leverage margin loan to accelerate returns from shares, the same way people do with property? Now, there are basically two ways that you can do this. One way that is very dangerous, that is a margin loan, and the other way, which is an equity release. I'll give you a couple of information on this. This is not advice, this is general in nature. Make sure that you get some professional advice on this. So traditionally, a margin loan is a loan that is secured against your share portfolio directly. Typically speaking, you can get a loan to value ratio up to about 70%. However, the issue is with a margin loan is one, the interest rates are much higher than say a residential property loan. But secondly, the loan has the ability to have what's called a margin call. So if on your account, the loan to value ratio falls below whatever the margin provider says, so let's say 70%, then you have 24 hours, in some cases less, in order to correct that loan to value ratio. Otherwise, the margin provider will sell your portfolio. And typically speaking, for the vast majority of people in that situation, they end up having to crystallize their losses in order to get their margin back on track. And they're selling their portfolio at the absolutely worst possible time. I saw this in the global financial crisis. Obviously, people had pretty, from what I saw, not a huge amount of leverage. Let's call like 40 or 50% loan to value ratio. But obviously, because the market corrected so quickly, they found themselves hitting their margin calls and got basically forced to sell their portfolios at the bottom of the market, which is what you don't want to do when the market falls, right? So I personally have never recommended for one of my clients to use a margin loan facility. I feel that they're far too dangerous. Now, the alternative is that if you have existing property, you have the ability to release equity, much like you would for a deposit for buying another property, and you can use that equity release to buy shares. The interest becomes tax deductible, you borrow at residential real estate rates, and there is no risk of margin call, obviously for as long as you continue to meet the repayments on that particular loan, because it is actually secured against the property. Now, the benefits of this is that basically you don't have the margin call, you've got a cheaper rate, and it's amortized over a much longer period of time, and it can be a really great way for you to build wealth. There is a strategy that we use called a debt recycling strategy, whereby we utilize that leverage against a property, a non-deductible property, so principal place of residence. We release equity, we use that to buy a share portfolio. That turns it from bad debt into good debt. That good debt is obviously tax deductible. We're using it to buy investments, and every single year the amount we pay off the bad debt, we then recycle and draw that out as a good debt, and then we rinse and repeat the process again. I'm happy to do a case study on it. I did it a while back, but it's probably worthwhile updating. So these are my views. I think the main thing to consider is that when you are using leverage to invest, whether it be for property or shares, you need to realize that it is a magnifier. So it makes good situations better, it makes bad situations a whole lot worse. The main thing to consider with any leverage is that you've got good liquidity, because the bank is always going to come knocking for their interest repayments. So you need to ensure that you have the ability to meet those repayments, and that's the biggest risk primarily. And then, of course, that you can stomach the volatility, because typically, historically, shares have been far more volatile than property. So you need to be prepared to I guess, navigate the market turbulence on your journey. But the added benefits are that many of our clients who do this kind of strategy, instead of dumping all of their money into the market on one day, like you do when you buy a property, you could say, for example, release $50,000, and then you might drip feed that into the market over 12 months, let's say. So once again, make sure you get advice on this. It is a complicated and is a higher risk strategy, but hopefully this gives you some insights to consider. Any questions? Let me know in the comments.